Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. Earlier this week, I mentioned that it is Pride Month and I asked for requests of bands who have one or more LGBTQ members in them or just artists who are LGBTQ, and I would be taking those requests and making reactions for them. We're going to get two done this week, one for today and one for tomorrow. Today's request comes at us from Sazzy Wazzy. Classic J Dies and Goes to Hell Part 1 by Glass Beach. So that's what we're going to be checking out today. I'm not familiar with this band at all. I don't even think I've heard them in passing. So let's dive into it and see what's going on with Glass Beach. Oh, we had a triplet beat against the second hand. Not sure if that was intentional or not, but yeah, we had 3 hits for every click. I like that bass tone. Really whimsical harmony too. He's on Genius looking at his own lyrics. That's good.
How could I ever sleep at night? My conscience left me petrified, staring at the ceiling wide.
The warmth and fullness of the piano alongside the ethereal vocals is a really nice choice. Dude, the beginning of that was When You Wish Upon a Star. Which, I mean, I should mention there is a lot of theatrical, musical theater in this. Well, I don't know why I started with theater. Oh, what? I mean, super funky, but kind of came out of nowhere. Very different. Oh, it's like an upbeat version of the same words, same melody. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I can't think of the band. Hawaii Part 2, though, is the album. Yeah, just very chill, very lighthearted. Really interesting hearing how the keyboard, bass, and guitar are sort of doing their own things but working really well together. A little bit of tension in there, but usually bringing it right back. Also, is that the guitarist on trumpet? That's pretty cool. Yeah. What? It's a very dry snare though, but I think it fits for the sound they're going for.
up on Saturday and then roll away into the abyss again. And I will always be a friend.
What? I almost wondered if we were going to go to a waltz with the heavy triplet feel at the end of that phrase, but we ended up going with just a halftime beat. Cool way to do the credits there. Okay, so that was something. I'm not really sure how to approach this yet, but I think what makes most sense to me starting off this conversation is what I think is the most obvious inspiration to most of this, which is musical theater. Every single part of this, yeah, even the punkier, the pop punk aspect we had at the end, I think still has a lot of room to take inspiration from musical theater as a base that informs all the compositional decisions in here. Even the wild juxtaposition between sounds moving from one speed and overall atmosphere to another with a very harsh transition between them, I think also stems from musical theater. It's it's really interesting how they've basically, at least in my mind, made a mini play out of a rock band ish thing. I mean, it's also trumpets, so maybe we could call it a ska band, but I don't think that necessarily ska fits with what they're doing. Anyways, let's just start with harmony. Let's go with chord progression and melody within the chord progression. These two things, starting from the very beginning, with the chords we had on the piano and the melody he sang over top, are very theatrical. There's also a lot of chord changes in there that you're more frequently find in Broadway or older musicals than you will in rock or really a lot of places, honestly. A lot of the opening also was based around this whimsical feeling that to me immediately harkens older Disney. And when I say older, I mean older. We're talking stuff like Pinocchio and Snow White, Cinderella. Um, and the thing is, too, is even at one point, I swear, it was like 3 full beats of basically being When You Wish Upon a Star from Pinocchio. And I find that really interesting. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's just that they're writing in a very similar manner, but yeah, I mean, that was in there. It's just no way not to hear that. And that informs so much of the beginning, whether it's how the guitars come in, or what the bass is doing when it comes in, or any of the auxiliary instruments later on, including the trumpets. Almost everything can be seen from this light of, hey, we're making a musical for a stage. What kind of music traditionally has existed within this realm? Let's stick with that. And so when the guitar comes in, when the bass come in, yeah, they do take on a bit more of a rock vibe. Even that's a bit light. I want to revisit that topic later, but I think it's fine for right now. The drums come in, same thing, very rockish, but I think a lot of that comes not just from the way that they sound, but also the faster tempo. As I mentioned during that second verse, once everything came in, it was a bit bouncier than where we started, that the melody the vocalist is singing is identical. It's just faster, more upbeat. It's been remixed a little bit, and we have the bounciness of the band present as well. We have a really funky bass line going on, we have some syncopation from the drums, and the guitars are using more staccato sounds there as well. It's very rhythmically interesting as a way to contrast from the mostly chordal based stuff we were hearing with the piano. That's not to say the piano was pure chords. There were some really cool flourishes in there, and I love the piano work on this track. But its primary purpose was to play these chords out. And this is just a drastic change from that. And in fact, I think that that's sort of the purpose of the ska element as well, bringing in the trumpets and the even faster pop punk beat going on there at the end and just kind of driving that energy forward. It is once again a transformation into speed and texture. We have the less staccato, or sorry, less syncopated, but still ever present speed coming out of the drums that eventually even shifts to blast beats, I think, at one point. Very short. I think it was only a bar's worth of them, but still, the drums presenting the speed, even as we get these tempo increases, is a consistent thing going on with the drum work. And the bass and the guitar, once again, just increasing their speed as well. Not so much increasing the complexity of what they're playing, but bringing more intensity through the amount of notes that they're playing at any given time, which is compounded by the tempo increase. And that's sort of what I feel about these sections, is that we're basically moving through stages of something. And the music video sort of aligns with this as well, I think, in some ways. We see the visual changes going on as it starts off with somebody presenting in front of a bored class, it seems like, moving to something that feels a bit more like a concert, and then into something that is sort of ritualistic. And so the visuals are segmented like this as well, including the fact that many of these scenes are transitioned with cuts to black and coming back to a new scene entirely. And so the music lining up with that, while I don't think it would have made as much sense to me if it was audio only, makes a lot of sense in the visual element, especially after I tie in the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of musical theater going on in here. Because I have listened to musicals that do the same thing, where there's a very sharp change in visuals or demeanor or costuming or something like that, and the music shifts with it. That's not to say that I enjoy the harsh transitions in this track. I find the song to be very segmented in a way that doesn't really make me want to return to it, but at least I can get the picture of what their intention is, and I think that the execution on the idea is solid. I think the last thing I really want to talk about on this one is the vocals. There's actually a lot of complexity and variety to them that I wasn't expecting. We start off with something a bit more ethereal. I had mentioned I like the contrast between its wispiness versus the full body of the piano. When we bring in the second section, there is quite a bit more delivery to it. By the third section, where we have the punk pop stuff, it's very loud, projected. He has a very wide mouth shape to it, really allowing a lot of sound and air to come out. It is full body, it is projected, it is loud, and by the end of the track, as he was hanging on the pipe there before his descent into hell, there was a little bit of raspiness added on for a natural compression. I really like the evolution of it. Once again, going along with the idea that the song is consistently evolving and ramping up in intensity to reach this peak that fits with the story of what's going on as well. I like listening to the intensity of the vocals rise also, starting out meek, growing in strength and body and fullness, and then entering a point of going over that and reaching compression and rasp. Um, at this point, we're going to hit lyrics. I'm going to see what's going on there. I'm going to be very surprised if the lyrical themes don't line up with the musical and visual ones, because this seems to be a group that is influenced by musicals in some way, which are typically pretty synergistic on all of its levels. I would assume that that influence would bleed into this work of art as well, in which case everything should be rather synergistic. But I think where I'm most interested right now is listening to more of Glass Beach. This is an interesting introduction to them, but as I mentioned, not something I particularly enjoyed in the larger work, but in the minutiae, in the execution of the ideas, I was enthralled by it. There's a lot of things in here that really do work for me. And so I would like to explore more of Glass Beach and see if anything else clicks with me a little bit more than this track did. And really, it's just the disjointedness of it that doesn't work quite so well for me. So with that said, let's dive into some lyrics and see what Glass Beach is presenting narratively in this. So this song is about somebody who is not in the greatest mental state, constantly looking backwards towards a time when things were easier. Verse 1 says, "How could I ever sleep at night? My conscience left me petrified, staring at the ceiling wide awake, reliving all my worst memory, or reliving all my worst mistakes." Verse 2 continues this, "How could I ever sleep at night when you left me paralyzed, trying to keep my head above the waves, holding out for brighter, better days." So life right now is not great. It was okay at one time. There was this person that meant something to me, but they left, and now all I can do is hope for a better tomorrow. Verse 3 does say, "I'm dreaming about better times, anything to bring me back to you, anything to take me back to..." And we get to the chorus, which says, "Friday nights, foggy streets and Christmas lights wake me up on Saturday." It's about wanting to go back to these easier times, dreaming about them, everything that maybe childhood was. And that's the majority of this track. It's about not being in a great place right now and kind of wanting to go back to when things were easier, when things made more sense, when there was more to be happy about. Because right now, all this person seems to have is hope. And each of these verses tends to get a bit heavier than the last. I wonder if that's supposed to line up with the increased intensity through the song as well, moving from something that's a bit more hopeful into something that's a bit more bouncy and driving into the most chaotic element of the song. It almost feels like the song is beginning to spin out of control at this point, and this is also where the vocalist wishes they were. I believe this is the chorus where he says, "I want to be in these Friday nights, the foggy streets, the Christmas lights, back when things were easier." Those are my thoughts on Glass Beach's classic Jade Dies and Goes to Hell Part 1. There is no Part 2 on this album, so I thought that was a fun little detail. There is a track called Yoshi's Island, though, so now I'm very interested in this. I'm not actually a big fan of the game, but I do think it's an interesting title, and I'm curious what they have to sing about for it. So, anyways, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put your thoughts, opinions, perspectives, comments down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.